Who wants to live forever? Well, guess what? You can't. And there's something called the Hayflick limit, which Dr. Sara Margolin is going to talk to us all about and explain what you can do to age well and live as long as you can in a healthy way. But sorry, folks, it won't be forever. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Sara Margolin. She is a professor, author, and aging expert whose research focuses on cognitive health, aging, and the factors that influence our brain change over time. Her research explores everything from memory and thinking skills to the role lifestyle and everyday habits may play in maintaining brain health as we age. Dr. Margolin gave us so many great tips and strategies on how to improve your brain health today so that it can help you age in a healthy way. I look forward to this conversation. Let's welcome Dr. Margolin to the podcast. My guest today is Dr. Sara Margolin, and I'm very happy to have you. Of course, this conversation about longevity, how do we live longer but better, right, with better health, is on the top of our minds, especially as like my audience is 45 to 65 plus. This is what we're thinking about. So thank you for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
First question, I would love to know in your own work, what are you on a mission to do? You've got a good social media presence there. I consumed a lot of it this past week, just listening to your content and your helpful tips and strategies. What are you on a mission to do?
I'm on a mission to alleviate the fear of aging. I think a lot of people believe things that are untrue and it makes us afraid to get older. And so we're grasping at straws to try and figure out how do I not let aging happen? But aging is not the problem. Aging is the natural thing that's occurring. The things we are afraid of are unhealthy things, not being well, losing our memories, getting dementia. Those are the things that I want to educate on because they are not universal experiences, and aging isn't a disease that we need to be curing.
Why do you say that? It's not a disease we need to be curing.
Because it's not a disease at all.
Okay.
It's not a disease at all. So the researchers like me distinguish between primary aging and secondary aging.
Okay.
And primary aging is what happens when our experience of life happens, right? It happens, maybe we lose a little bit of muscle mass. Maybe we now need reading glasses. Maybe we're hearing isn't great. Maybe we're losing a little height. Maybe we're getting a little slower. Those are all adaptable things that really don't interfere with our ability to live independently. And when I say independently, I mean like being able to do laundry, cook meals, bathe ourselves, feed ourselves, dress ourselves, right? And that's different than secondary aging, which is what happens in the context of disease. What happens when we have high blood pressure? What happens when we have diabetes? What happens when we have glaucoma? And yes, those are more common when we're older, but they're not the definition of aging, right? And so being able to distinguish those things and live into aging as a developmental process, because we're aging all the time, right? We're not aging just when we're 50, we're aging all throughout our lives, we're developing all throughout our lives. So being able to distinguish between natural aging process and what happens with disease, I think is really important.
I've watched Brian Johnson, I think his name is, on social media. Do you know who that is?
No.
Oh, okay. He's like the, I don't know, a million hack guru on how to live as long as possible, basically. So he's got all the things dialed in and he's spent millions and millions of dollars trying to live as long as possible. And I don't know if he touts that he can live forever, but sometimes people, you hear this stuff, right? They're like, I'm going to live as long as, possible. I'll never die. But there is something called the Hayflick limit that you talk about. So explain to us what that is and why, as much as you want to live forever, you might not be able to.
Right. No, it's not biologically possible for us to live forever. We can think about it a couple of ways. One way is, your car isn't going to run forever. Even as well as you take care of it, at some point, it runs out of the ability to do that. Our human body is the same way. Like by the time you're 80, you've used that thing for 80 years, right? Like things are gonna kind of wear out. And so what's happening with the Hayflick limit and on a cellular level is every time we need to kind of replenish or replace our cells. And I think oftentimes we think about this in terms of our skin, like we exfoliate and we get fresh skin cells kind of popping up underneath. That happens all over our body, right? And every time we do that, our cell will divide, it will replicate itself and then divide into two and get kind of new fresh cell parts. And then we discard the old used up ones. When we do that, the DNA, the ends of the strands of the DNA get shorter and thinner every time. And, I think about it like ripping a piece of paper in half. You can rip it in half just fine, and you rip it in half again, and you rip it in half again. But eventually that piece of paper is going to be too small to continue to rip in half. And that's the limit, right? And that's the limit of our cell's ability to replicate itself. So there's only so many times that our cell can divide and replace itself. And that's the Hayflick limit. And so at some point, all of our cells are going to hit that limit. And we estimate that limit to be about 120 years.
Okay.
There are other things that can make those DNA, we call them telomeres. The ends of the strands of DNA are the telomeres, and those end caps can get shorter and thinner from other things, not just dividing and replicating, but also stress, also oxidation. And so we want to manage those things in order to be able to get as close to that 120 limit as possible, but we're never going to live forever. It's just not.
Yeah. It's not in the cards, folks.
Right. It's not human.
but we can slow the paper ripping. We can slow the cells from deteriorating. I'd love to talk about telomeres, telomerase, senescent cells. I have read the book The Telomere Effect years ago, but I found it very informative and empowering, because when I understood a little bit what was happening to the end of the DNA, I made some shifts. I could make some changes to say, okay, I don't want these telomeres or telomeres to shorten. So how do I keep them long? So could we go into that conversation? Could you explain exactly what that is for those listening who may have not heard of that word before? Make it simple for us. And how can we prevent our telomeres from shortening?
Right. And so it really is just what I explained. And so the telomeres are those end caps on the DNA. Right. And so we want to maximize their length. Right. And so they're going to get shorter over the process of our cellular regeneration, but they could also get shorter based on from the impact of other things. And so one of the things I think that it might be in that book, I can't remember, it might be another one of her research papers, is the impact of stress.
Okay.
And this one is huge.
Yeah.
And the particular study that I'm thinking of impacts me personally. And so it always comes to mind. And that is, they looked at mothers who were caregivers to their children with chronic illness.
Right.
And they looked at the size of their telomeres, and those who have been caregivers for their children with chronic illness for over a decade, I think it was 12 years, had significantly shorter telomeres than those who were just mothers of healthy children. Parenting is hard enough. Parenting is stressful enough. When you add in a layer of now your child has a chronic illness, and this is what hits me personally, it's stressful. You're always looking at, is that another symptom? What's the medication regimen? Did they take their medicine? Do we have to go to the doctor? Do we have to go to the hospital? And so you're always kind of on guard. And that level of stress doesn't just affect your mental health, which it does, but it also can affect your physical health and all the way down to the DNA. Yeah. And so managing stress is important. There's some instances where stress is just going to happen, right? So it's important for us to kind of look at stress and appraise it properly, right? Is this something that I'm taking on and making myself stressed about unnecessarily? Or is this something that I actually have to deal with, right? There's terrible things going on all over the world, but if it's not affecting me and my life day to day, I probably can acknowledge it and move on. Whereas a mom with a child with chronic illness, you can't acknowledge that and move on, right? You have to deal with that every moment of every day. So
Yeah.
I like to think about the stress as one of the larger contributing factors to making those telomeres short unnecessarily. Like I said, they're going to get shorter,
Yeah.
but we don't need to make it extra. We don't need to
Yeah.
add to
For sure. One of the things in that book too about that same story that she's referring to is they also looked at, wasn't there a handful of women who had actually didn't have the shortened telomeres. So theirs were a little bit longer, and they're like, why is this the case? You have these chronically ill children. Let's follow you for a period of time and see how you approach your day, how you approach this stressor. And
it.
one of the things that they noticed was that those women saw the stressor as something to be tackled, like a challenge to overcome. And so their mindset about the stress and how they engaged with those stressors was completely different than being overwhelmed by it, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about how the mind, how it's so important, how we see our stressors, and how the mind is so powerful.
Yeah, so the mind can be really, really powerful. So when we encounter a stressor, we have often a choice about how we're going to manage it. So are we going to see this as something that we can approach in a problems focused manner, which is what those women did? Like, I have a problem, here is a solution. And while you're not curing your child, there are
Right.
tasks to tackle, right? Like
Right.
there's
Yeah.
a medication regimen, or there's a feeding schedule, or whatever the case may be. And so it's a problem that you can then tackle and solve, and that makes that stress more manageable. You can approach it in an emotion focused way. Can I shift how I think about this thing? Right. In the case of, my son, he has Crohn's disease, but I do too. So now we can kind of bond over it. I mean, it still stings, right? Like, we don't want either of us to have this, but it is a way that we connect. And so we shift how we think about it, right? And now I have good empathy for him and what he's going through. And in some cases, we need to turn toward like meaning focused coping. And are we finding meaning in this? Maybe we can't find something good about it. Maybe it's a problem that just is a problem. There's some research that says that religion is a good and powerful way to shift and manage our stress. And not one particular religion, just religion more generally, or spirituality more generally, can be a really good stress management tool. And even like things that we do within spirituality, and like meditation. Some research shows meditation, mindfulness meditation, can impact our telomeres. So people who regularly engage in meditation, if you look at their telomeres, they are longer than people that don't regularly engage in it. So what are we doing when we encounter that stressor is really, really important, because stress is a response to an external something happening, and we can choose how we respond to it.
For sure. If you say that stress is one of the biggest predictors of telomere shortening, like that is something that we can do something about, right? It's a skill to learn to work with your stressors. And it's not something that happens overnight. But as you said, there's a lot of tools that can be tools in your toolkit to help you.
Mhm.
But it is something I think that we just, as busy women, we don't take time for. We'll just pass over it, right? I need to work on managing my stress or working with the stress that I have. And again, like I had recently Dr. Daniel Hockman on the podcast, a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, who talked about some of the things that we could do to begin to work with our stress. But it's not a short fix. Like, it's something that we have to pay attention to, that we have to give time and attention to. And isn't it so worth it though, if it's going to impact how we engage in our world and environment that is so stressful?
Yeah, and it's constant work, right? We don't
Yeah.
work, get there, and we're done.
No.
It's we work, we get there, and then we keep working to be able to maintain that, right? Because over time, you can lose some of those skills. It doesn't stay fresh for us, and so we should always be working on it.
Hmm. Yeah, because we can dial in our diet, we can make sure we have exercise protocol, but if you still have very high stressful living situation or job situation, it's
Right.
going to impact your DNA dramatically. So
Mhm.
that is something we all must dial in a little bit more.
Yeah.
The longevity industry, of course, is exploding right now. So this is your time to shine with your research and science because there's just so much coming at us. What is genuinely useful on social media versus what is kind of like expensive distraction?
Um, I mean, a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but
Say it.
supplements are
Yeah, generally
they're
expensive.
expensive. It's expensive urine. Honestly, like there's not a lot of research to
Yeah, and we just
support
buy
really
in hook, line,
anything.
and sinker, don't we? We just buy
Yeah.
in.
Now, I will say there are things to pay attention to, like nutrients to pay attention to, but by and large, we can and do get them from our diet if we're eating well. And those are omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin B12. And those are in abundance when we're eating a Mediterranean style diet, which is the most research-backed style diet. I also like to, when I talk about the Mediterranean diet, I like to point out this does not mean Mediterranean style foods. Like we're not talking like olives and feta cheese, though that's delicious and certainly include them if you like it. But it's a plant forward diet with whole grains, fruits and vegetables, legumes as the base, and then added in lean protein and added in a little bit of fat and added in for a treat, something sweet. We're not looking to pull out someone's cultural foods because that's important, right? Our
Sure.
culture, our religion, our connectedness to our heritage and our family and what we're used to eating, like that's important. But when we shift it and shift proportions, now we're looking more toward a healthful diet. And when we do that, we will almost automatically start seeing the right amounts of the nutrients that we need. We don't need expensive supplements, greens, powders, those sorts of things. Like a multivitamin will likely be more than enough.
Hmm.
Obviously, check with your doctor, but
Hmm. Hmm.
usually more than enough. There's really not a lot of evidence to support anything. So I'd say supplements are the thing that it's all over social media. We don't need it.
Yeah. You're not the first person to say that supplements is just expensive urine, that's for sure. But it's true, right? Like we want that quick fix, and we think that if we just buy this supplement, it's going to do it. But
Mhm.
it's the big rocks, it's the basic pillars that have to be done over time consistently that move the needle the most.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry folks, it's not the quick fix. What are some of the things that are genuinely useful that you're seeing? What's genuinely helpful in our lives to help us live longer and healthier?
I don't I don't believe in a one thing is going to fix anything, whether it's something we buy that's expensive or something that we do on our own. One thing is not going to be the fix. Like again,
Sure.
we're not trying to fix anything. We're trying to live well. And so I like to take a biopsychosocial approach.
Love
So
that.
approach it biologically, psychologically, and socially. So biologically, we need exercise. So both cardio and strength training. And we don't need to be lifting, super heavy, crazy bodybuilding kinds of things. We just need resistance. And as a former jazzercise instructor, I will tell you, and I'm not saying it's just because I was a jazzercise instructor, but that is a wonderful workout program because it incorporates everything you possibly need in an hour. So shout out to jazzercise. uh,
That is old school. That is
it's
old school.
well, you say that, but when I was teaching, this was not even 10 years ago. Uh,
Okay.
it was very modern.
Oh, that's fun. I haven't done a modern class, so
We were dancing to Pitbull.
no.
So and it was fan. That was what most of my class was older. And these 60 and 7-year-old women were requesting Pitbull, which was
That's funny.
fantastic. So exercise and diet. So biologically speaking, I mean that's the pillars: exercise and diet. Psychologically, we want to check in with our mindset and how we look at aging is often how we experience aging. And there is some
Sure.
research to support that our expectations will be fulfilled.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and we also want to look at our cognitive exercise. So, what are we doing to work our mind? When we're working, it seems to be automatic, right? You know, we go into the workplace, we're doing tasks, we're working on projects, we're thinking, we're problem solving, and that's what we need to be doing. But then once we retire, that's not built in anymore. And
Right.
so we need to be challenging ourselves. So we need to be reading, we need to be um, doing puzzles and games, we need to be learning new things. So taking classes, learning an instrument, learning a foreign language, those are all amazing. So challenging ourselves cognitively. So that's our psycho. And then socially, we need to be maintaining relationships.
Yeah.
And we know that our social circle is going to shrink over time. We are going to have fewer friends, but that's not bad. It's simply the nature of life. And it tends to be the case that when we're older, we will look for quality over quantity. So we want a few close relationships. We're not in the workplace anymore. So we're not surrounded by lots of people anymore. So it isn't, again, automatic to have those things built into our lives. So we have to kind of seek it out. And this is funny, but also real. And that is the Golden Girls did it right.
Living
They
together?
that living together, they created that bond. And even if they're not living together, but like having those close friendships
Yeah.
to deal with problems, to deal with those stressors, that's a great stress management tool, particularly for women. So
Mm.
we see some gender differences
Okay.
in how we manage stress and what we do in the face of stress. They looked at men and women before medical procedures, and the men
Okay.
kind of just wanted to be left alone. They want to get in, get out, get it done, like a colonoscopy, just like go in, get it out, get it done. Women, we say tend and befriend. They want someone, they turn towards someone. They want someone there, even if there's no conversation, just to have someone in the room there with them is powerful and
Mm.
meaningful. And so I think if we look at it with these three components of biopsychosocial, we're going to put our best foot forward. So kind of
Mhm.
just like something from each basket.
I love that. I was just thinking when you're talking about women going into surgery and or procedures and needing someone. My mom just had a kidney removal. She had kidney cancer in the one kidney only, so the whole kidney was taken out. And she has three daughters. There's three of us, and we were just all in there like dirty shirts. She's like that was like the best time. Like all
Yes.
the girls were there, and everyone was supporting. And she had friends from the gym come and visit. Like she had really created a circle of
Mm-hmm.
comfort, of connection. And wow, can you imagine just being alone? I guess I thought back to the pandemic time when my dad actually had a minor heart attack. He
Yes.
had to go into the hospital totally alone, right? No
Mm-hmm.
friends, nothing. I mean, we heard stories of people having to die without their loved ones nearby or their
Yeah.
connections and family, and how terrible that isolation really was for us as a society, right? It's
Yes.
so I love what you said about that. It just gives credence again to me to say I must work on my connections with other women, with other people, and
Mhm.
build that circle because you're going to need it.
Right. And they kind of all feed into one another too. So you can think about like when you form a relationship with a friend, maybe you then go take a class together, right?
Mm.
Or maybe you go to dinner together, or maybe you read a book together. And so then you're doing some of those other things, but in a way that's connecting you to someone else. And so you don't need to do these things in isolation. You can do them together. So I always like
Mm.
to recommend a book club because that
Yes.
allows you to
Yeah.
do several things all in one, one fell swoop.
Yeah. Two birds, one stone. I like the walk and talk as well. Like
Yes.
let's have a visit, but let's walk while we're doing it. So a little
Yeah.
walk and talk, book club, those are great ideas.
Mhm.
I want to look a little bit more into this psychosocial because I think that's really important. Let's look at the psycho component. When you're looking at someone like in their 50s, what are some of the earliest signs that might predict how they'll function in their 70s and 80s? Like, what are we looking to I don't want to say optimize because we've optimized out like already. We're too optimal. But what can we work on? What can we dial in? What can we focus on at this age so that, we have good psychology and good cognition
Mhm.
in our later ages?
Really, truly, those three pillars. And
Yeah.
so, we want to work on our physical health because that is going to affect our brain, right? We see when people have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, uncontrolled diabetes, those things will actually impact our brain. We all have, we call them white matter hyperintensities. They're just little tiny lesions in our brain, and they're usually harmless. But if we have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, uncontrolled diabetes, we're going to get more of those. And at some point, we cross the limit of having now too many. We don't
Right.
know what that line is yet, and it might be individual, person to person. We don't have enough evidence to say this is too many, but we don't want to have too many, right? Because that's going to now start to impact our function. But beyond that, social isolation, because when we're isolated socially, not only does that affect our mental health, it is now going to start to potentially affect our cognitive health, because what we're doing when we're social is
Mhm.
getting cognitive input. Listening to someone tell a story about their trip to the grocery store is information that we're processing mentally, right? Even if it's boring, it's still information. When we're reading a book and discussing it with a friend, we're getting now their perspective on that book. That's information. So being isolated isn't just, I don't have friends, it's potentially going to impact us cognitively. And this social isolation isn't just like, I don't have very many friends, but also can be the result of something like hearing loss.
Mhm.
So, someone who has hearing loss that maybe doesn't correct their hearing loss is diminishing their informational input, right? They're not hearing information, they're not processing that information. And when you do that, right, and I say this from a place of experience because I do have hearing loss. You ask your friends to repeat themselves again and again and again. And I drive my husband crazy when I say, what'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say?
Right.
And eventually that gets old, right? He's very patient with me, but he's my husband, right? Like he's my closest person. And I'm not going to do that with someone who's an acquaintance or someone that I, meet at the grocery store. And so you're not going to ask again and again and again. It gets old. You're going to stop. So you're going to stop engaging, right? And you're going to stop getting that information. And over time, you're going to become socially isolated simply because you didn't want to continue bothering other people. But if you have corrected that hearing loss, now we could kind of mitigate that and we get a situation where you're getting the information, right? And it's a very, very simple, easy tool that people are often resistant to, right? But they're small, you don't see them, right? But it is a tool that can help prevent some of that isolation. So I'd say, overall health, social isolation, using the tools that we have to connect to the world are all good things to be watching out for in our 50s and 60s to set us up better for our 70s and 80s.
If you listen to that podcast with Dr. Stephanie Rogers,
Yeah,
gerontologist, yeah,
yeah,
she talked
great.
she talked about the 14 modifiable risk factors for dementia, and one of them was hearing loss. So yeah, it's nothing to play around with, but it's something that can completely shift the trajectory of your aging, right? So I know
Yeah.
we got my mom some hearing aids because we're like, nope, you're not getting dementia, lady.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that we can do to help prevent dementia. And that's something that's really, I think, scary for people is the idea that dementia is coming. But the
Yeah.
reality is it probably isn't. Dementia is not a guarantee with age. They are not synonymous. We look at rates of Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common type of dementia, happens to about 10 to 12% of people over the age of 65. So,
Okay.
yes, it's a lot of people,
Yeah.
but it's not nearly
It's not
universal.
everyone.
No, 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 no. And
Yeah.
so, even if we have risk factors that, like a genetic component would double that risk to maybe like 25%, still 25%. It's not universal. And so we don't have to succumb to dementia. And even if it does hit, if we're doing a lot of these things that we're talking about, particularly the cognitive work and the social connectedness, we're going to build up a cognitive reserve. We're going to have a backup system that's going to help us maintain function for longer, even if dementia comes.
Yeah. I would love to talk about practical things the audience can do to improve that cognitive piece because, we have time sometimes just sitting at home in the evening. What are things we could work on? What are things that can stimulate the brain to continue to grow and not, go backwards?
Right. So I always say use it or lose it. Use what you've got. Use and do it in a way that you like. So find an activity that's mentally stimulating that you enjoy doing. Yes, we enjoy watching TV. Watching TV is pretty passive, right? It doesn't have to be, right? It can be more active, right? So we may choose, I'm going to watch a crime show, right? And rather than just watching, maybe we try and help solve the crime while we're watching,
okay. Yeah.
right? Sort of in the same way if we're reading a murder mystery book, right? How we're trying to think like, who did this? Are they a suspect? Are they a suspect? And we're mentally trying to like put the pieces together, right? And that's the work that we need to be doing rather than passively taking it in. We need to be engaged in whatever it is. So creating things, learning things. Maybe we want to watch TV. I'm a TV watcher. I like to watch TV, but what could we be watching that's maybe mentally stimulating? Maybe we watch a documentary, right? Maybe we watch true crime, right? Still interesting, but is mentally engaging. Jeopardy. Jeopardy's
Yeah.
great, right? It's when we disengage that we start to have difficulty. Reading is great. Learning is great. There's several universities, Harvard, Yale, among others, that offer free virtual classes where you can watch the lectures. And if you Google it, the universities will have like listings and you can learn something. I found one that was like, I think it was through Yale, and I keep meaning to do it, but mom working full time, social media presence, writing a book, like I have more than enough on my plate. But I swear I will do it eventually. But it's about like the history of the Bible and looking at it from a historical lens, which is really interesting. So they literally everything. There's physics classes, there's music appreciation classes. Like take a class, they're free.
That's very cool. And I'm sure local colleges have seniors programs as well, right?
They do. I don't know what other states do, but where I live in New York, the New York State University system offers individuals over age 65 can audit any state university class that they want for free.
Cool. Really? That is,
Really?
I mean, we're in Canada, so I don't know what we offer here, but I feel like there are opportunities for different things like that here in Canada
There
too.
probably are. But even if not, look at your public library. They often have programming to take classes or sit for an hour or two to learn something, a craft, a travel log. I've gone and give talks at public libraries to learn about cognitive wellness. Your public library is a great resource.
I love that. That's a great thing to do. Years ago, I read the book Younger Next Year. And one of the things that the doctor in the book, I can't remember his name now, but he would preach that once you retire, moving daily or moving your body and taking care of yourself becomes your new job, right? This becomes now what you're going to do. And so, as Dr. Sara has mentioned, there's just so many things that you can do for your brain, for your body, for your nutrition, just taking that opportunity to dial in some of these elements can really change the trajectory of your life and health, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What if someone had just like 20 minutes a day to invest in her future self? What's the highest return of that time?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. If we only had 20 minutes, I would honestly, I would do a book club because you can read for 20 minutes a day and then invest another hour once a month
Yeah.
to connect with the people. So now you're exercising our mind and forming relationships. And so you're hitting a couple of those things.
Yeah. That's the psychosocial right there. I love that. I feel like I was in a book club once and it totally sucked. We
Oh
all the
no.
it was in my early 40s and all the ladies like we just everyone came to just drink wine. And I came with this one book, I can't remember, it was A Thousand Splendid Things or something. I read it. It was a big book and
Mhm.
like barely anyone read it. I'm like, are you really? Okay. So
That's
I
fun to
think
look at your public library
yeah.
because they often have book clubs and book discussion groups. And sometimes they're like targeted to like different kinds of books. So I know where I am, there's a romance book club, there's
Okay,
a
yeah, yeah.
fiction book club, there's a nonfiction book club, there's a mystery book club. So you can kind of
Ah,
dial into
cool.
like the kinds of books that you like to read, but you can also try something new,
Yeah.
which is another kind of advantage.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say maybe in an instance like yours, don't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
it in your community
It's a good
uh,
idea.
whenever possible, so that especially in the public library, they're probably not going to be drinking wine.
Yeah.
Uh, they
It's
might
probably
bring
more
snacks.
structure.
We did that, but cookies are very different than
For sure.
wine.
For sure. Final question. Are you afraid of aging?
No, I'm excited. In fact, I'm I'm almost a little bit offended when people say you look so young. I'm like, no, I'm not as young as I look. I'm older than this, I promise.
You're like, I want to earn those stripes.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
I see wrinkles in my face and I'm like, yes, I did it. Right. Like it's like a badge of honor that we've lived long enough to experience things and do things. And why would we be afraid of that?
Yeah. But so many women are, and just there's so many just wanting to reverse the hands of time. What do you
Right.
think about that?
I think some of that is internalized from our society because,
Totally.
particularly in Western culture, being older means being discarded. And so,
Right.
why would we want to be discarded? We're going to do everything that we can in our power to avoid that. So, if that means making myself look younger, making myself act younger, dress younger, be younger in some way, then maybe that means that I won't be discarded. So I think it's going to take a cultural shift for us to shift individually because we've internalized that too much. And yeah, there's pockets of people like me where we want to get older, but I don't think that's typical. I think what's typical is being fearful, not because of the wrinkles or because of potential for physical decline, but for the potential of no longer being relevant and no longer
Mm.
mattering to people.
Hmm. Yeah. I can't explain the tension of it, but I feel like right now with the rise of the menopausal woman, and we've seen that in social media, I am far more in the aging acceptance and empowerment camp than I have ever been before, which I'm grateful for that. And of course, I'm in the middle of this rise. Like I'm like caught up right in it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a temptation to keep one foot in the don't age camp. And that is completely, as you say, it's like a social norm that has been set. It's
Mm-hmm.
also an internal battle. Like, how do I feel? Can I be accepted? Do I accept myself? Do I feel
Mm-hmm.
empowered? So it's like that foot is slowly coming out of that camp. And I'm like, I want to have both feet in the camp of just being the crone, as Dr. Hillary McBride said on the podcast recently. I love that. It feels empowering. But there is that pull. I can feel the tension in myself.
Yeah.
And I want to keep questioning that because I don't want it to be the case, but it's there. And I think for a lot of us listening, it's there, right? They like, should we get Botox? Should we color our hair? Should we do all of the things to stay looking young versus allowing the age to come?
And none of that is bad. Botox isn't bad. Dyeing your hair is not bad. None of that is bad. It's if that's what you like, great, do it. But I don't think we should be doing it for acceptance,
Yeah. But
right?
aren't we? But aren't we? Or what are we doing it for? Like that's the
Like,
question.
I mean, if you like it, like if you think your skin looks healthier when your hair is brown and not gray, like the
Yeah.
contrast looks better, then great, dye your hair.
Yeah,
But
but
if
who
you're
told us
just
that
want
it
to
looks
hide the gray,
better? Like who
that's
told us? I don't know.
me.
Yeah.
Like, if I
Yeah.
don't dye my hair, but like if I did, it would be me wanting it. And that's the distinction that I want people to make
Yeah.
is, do I like it better? Because
Yeah.
with or without Botox, with or without hair dye, what's happening inside is aging. And so that's coming, whether or not we like it. So we either accept it or we're going to be really disappointed one day when the hair dye isn't cutting it and the Botox wears off.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for sure. I just saw Rosie O'Donnell got a facelift and she had been the queen of saying, I will never, ever, 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 ever get one. And then she
Mm-hmm.
did, and then trying to explain herself and her choices. And it made me just think about that. Like, if she lived on a deserted island by herself, and then there was the plastic surgeon that also came on the island once a month. Like, would she still do it? Would she, if it was for no one, if it was for her, if there was no one to see her, would it matter? Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's
this
a
is
great question.
the one foot in one camp that I'm just
Mm-hmm.
struggling with right now and trying to figure out for myself.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question to ask ourselves. If we were alone on a desert island, would we still want to do this?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then do it.
Yeah.
But if the answer is no, then what are you doing it for?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah.
can invest your time or your money or your energy into something else that is more impactful, like healthier groceries
Yeah.
or a gym membership or, taking your time for a daily walk. Like maybe we could do something else with that
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm. It's an interesting discussion for sure, and one that we will keep having here on Move Daily Talks. So keep listening, folks, because that's top of my mind right now.
Mhm.
Dr. Sara, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thanks for your insight and great ideas on how we can improve that psychosocial. What else? What was in it?
Biopsychosocial.
Okay. Yes. Improve that aspect of our lives and age well for a long, long time. Where can people find you and or work with you?
They can find me on Instagram at Dr. Sara Margolin. They can visit my website, drsaramargolin.com, and they can email me at sarah.j.margolin@gmail.com.
Wonderful. I'll definitely link all of that in the show notes below, folks. So jump on down there. And while you're down there, don't forget to be subscribed to this podcast on YouTube. You can click the bell as well to be notified when a new podcast is out. Or you can subscribe by hitting that plus sign anywhere you stream your podcasts. Thank you again. And now to all of you, go move daily in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition, and in your healthy aging. And we'll see you all on the next Move Daily Talks.